not back out of the position. You are so committed to this position now that to come back out and say, not only did we get it wrong, it was the worst plan we could have possibly done, because not only did we have zero impact on the spread of COVID, we actually caused more deaths in younger populations that were not at risk whatsoever. That's what we did. We actually caused more suicides, more overdoses, more deaths by anxiety, stress, heart attack, and everything else, more deaths of isolation than we ever even came close to stopping in the population over the age of 75. That's the trade-off we made.
Yeah, and so transitioning locally here, this is the backdrop of the whole, Cuomo's tenure as governor this last year and a half has been leading us through this pandemic, winning an Emmy along the way, writing a best-selling book along the way. Now he's being taken down pretty much by anybody who has ever, he's ever looked at sideways. Seems to have come out of the work here and tried to pile on the governor's issue here. So recapping, finally we got some numbers about nursing home deaths. Two things that the state had been misleading about was the number of patients that they had sent back into nursing homes that with positive, that were sent back from hospitals back into nursing homes, which I think went from something like 5,000 to 9,000. And the total number of deaths reported from the nursing homes went from something like 8,500 to 15,000. So both these numbers created a backdrop for our governor to kind of come out on a daily basis and do his own little mini podcast himself here with his press conferences and tell us how great he's been doing and how great New York is. And in hindsight, he's been a train wreck. We've discussed all of the things why New York is not, shouldn't get necessarily a pass for being first or the biggest or the most populated and all that stuff. Ben can go into more of that later if we need to. But this is all basically an extension of what we just talked about, right? So we're under this lockdown that we don't even know why we're being locked down anymore. And then we got our leader out here who's being praised by at least half of the state, which is still crazy to me, but has clearly was not a leader, right? I mean, this was something that, he failed pretty much from the beginning and maintained his press conferences because he was hiding data and made himself look even better and became the darling of the media because he was the anti-Trump, because he could present better than Trump. I don't know if that's the exact reason, but I heard somebody saying, well, I know he was lying, but at least he was out there doing press conferences. And I was like, well, why bother? If he's out there just because he's moving his lips, like that's a good thing? Like, what are we doing? So we have this cover-up going on. Data's coming out daily. He's getting pushback from the Republicans for months. But now even his own party is coming back. They're trying to remove his emergency powers, or at least curtail them. They're trying to, I don't know, they should just remove them, but I think there's some cockamamie idea that they could have like a secondary, they could approve of any of his executive orders before they became into place, but they should just remove his powers and do their job. There's talk of impeachment. We don't have a recall mechanism in New York. There's call for him to resign. I don't know if any of those things are going to happen. We got a quite a nice little, I don't know. I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. So maybe a few more weeks of this Cuomo stuff. Do you have any hot takes on your governor?
Yeah, he didn't mislead the people about the numbers of infections or the number of deaths. He lied.
Sure.
It wasn't like a misleading, like, oh, just don't look over here. They released data they knew to be false.
And bragged about it.
Right. And then bragged about it even though they knew they were counting deaths differently than everybody else. This goes right back into what I was saying. Like, this is incontrovertible proof that this guy lied. And his executive order was responsible for, I think the number was about 1,000 deaths.
For the Empire Center, yep.
Yep. Through the Empire Center, it's a think tank out of Albany. 1,000 deaths can be traced back to this executive order that not only he keep in force for 6 weeks, he then said, after he started getting fired, he had the Department of Health investigate itself. And they were like, no, nothing wrong. We followed all the Medicare and Medicaid services. I don't remember their name, but whoever the leader of the Department of Medicare and Medicaid Services came out like, nope, that wasn't what we said at all. Not even close. All right, well, swing and a miss on that one. Then it was, Well, nobody even went in that was infected because the median time that somebody returned to the nursing home was 9 days. And the CDC thinks you're only infectious for like 7 or like 3 or 4. Oh, really? Why are we quarantining for 2 weeks then? That's fun. What? Never mind that inconsistency. Also, median means the number in the middle of a set. So since we know some people were in there for 15, 20 days before they went back, that also means there were some people that were in there less than a week and then went back to the nursing home. So again, outright lie, easily detectable if you're paying any sort of attention whatsoever. And the other one was, well, that wasn't really the rule. Sorry, what? That wasn't real. That was just in case nursing homes got overwhelmed or hospitals got overwhelmed, and they never did. So it was never really the rule. Did you bother to tell any of the nursing homes or the hospitals that? Because they did it. They followed your order. And as it was happening, not one person on your team went, hey, guys, no, don't do that. That's crazy. That's not the rule. No, you're like, well, if they don't have the PPE, that's on them.
Yeah, and there was several of those places that came out and basically immediately raised the red flag and said, hey, this is not a good idea. So it wasn't like it was unknown. There was known the day it was executed. So
yeah, it was a bad. I would have understood if they tried it for a week out of fear of overwhelming the hospital systems. I would have understood. Honest to God, I would have. But the problem is that, look, hindsight is 2020, and this is one of the things that we should be paying attention to of how bad New York did. The worst thing New York did, I guess it's not definitively true, but again, there's a whole lot of correlation, was way too aggressive use of ventilators and respirators early on at way too high of a setting, grouping patients together with no separations whatsoever. And the biggest thing that we did wrong in our state was we took a blanket approach and we acted as if this was the same exact threat to everybody. So then any data that came in to support that, everybody jumped onto immediately and said, see, it really is everybody. See, it really is everybody. Like, no, one person at 35 dying from COVID is not the same as 1,000 people over the age of 70 dying of COVID. This is you're going to get exceptions every now and then. You don't base public policy on the exceptions. You base it on the biggest thing. You are triaging. It is not an equal threat. It's not close to an equal threat, and people did not grasp that because they were being directly misled by the governor in his daily press briefings, by Dr. Zucker, the head of New York State Department of Health, even by Dr. Fauci of like, this is wrong. What we were told was false, and it was demonstrably false when they were saying it. It was false then. It didn't end up being true. They're like, well, we got to just keep trying. Well, why don't we try something that's not horribly invasive and harmful? Let's start there and then work our way up to the awful things that are going to cause more deaths. Why did we go right to this?
Yeah, we had I don't know if a culprit or complicit is the right word, but our local senator here, Senator Rachel May, who is the chair of the Aging Committee, had multiple opportunities to issue subpoenas to Howard Zucker, and in the most recent request, basically said, she said, I don't see the point. So she's calling for the strip or the curtailing of the emergency powers from Cuomo now in hindsight, but like she had the ability to actually put some light on the information and chose not to do so. So taking away the emergency powers at this point should be so painfully obviously the right thing to do that I can't believe it's even a discussion. It's not a bold take. Yeah. I'm sorry. This guy lied and covered up his crime. The cover-up was the crime. Like you can make the argument that by filing the Department of Health report, that was filing a false instrument, because it was blatantly false. The most obvious one was they knew they were counting nursing home deaths differently than every other state and still cited that data as evidence that they were doing it better than anybody else. They knew that it was different. They cited it anyway to directly mislead the public. That aside, they knew this all happened, and they came out and lied to your face about it every single day for months. There was no arguing. There was no gray area for them to hide in. This was blatantly lying to you every single day to cover up the bad data, because ultimately, if you looked at the data for real in real time, what you would have understood was, keep in mind, they didn't find an additional 7,000 nursing home deaths from people that were alive. Nope. They found 7,000 additional nursing home deaths that had been classified as hospital deaths. So the hospital death number dropped by 7,500 as the hospital deaths went up by not 7,500, by about 7,000, 6,500 to 7,000. That data is important because, again, I've hit on this so many times, and I apologize for repeating myself.
nursing home, assisted living, all that stuff, that population is less than 1% of the overall population of the country, of the state. It's less than 1%. So in less than 1% of the people are accounting for 60% plus of the people dying, it's almost like you know where to start. But instead we got this, everything was fear, and please, I don't.
And where I think it matters most is that the New York variant is the one that spread across the U.S. So that's the one that we should have had the most information on, and our governor was hiding the information. So the data was being distorted as it was being spread across these other states as the same variant of what was in New York was spreading. Those new states those new areas didn't have the information or accurate information that they should have been getting from New York the whole time. And so
they still did better.
Sure.
And Cuomo came out, blamed Trump. Like, he didn't give us the information. Like, well, did he give it to the other 49 states? Because, forgive my language, but you're getting your ass kicked over here.
And like I said, and anybody who questioned Cuomo the whole time was basically made it political, right? So, do you remember when Cuomo came out and said to Florida, you played politics with the virus and you lost? Yeah. I mean, that should be a bumper sticker. It's amazing. Listen, Florida's elderly population is larger than New York's. You know what the advantage Florida, honest to God, had, though, was? Sun. They have way more vitamin D exposure. Do you think it's a coincidence of timing that all the cases started dropping right around the time that the sun came out and was brighter and people came outside again? Are you saying it's seasonal? Like every other... You're going to get banned. Like every other SARS virus in existence or every other coronavirus. You're going to get canceled. Yeah, it's weird to think that might be a possibility. But no. Your guys are right because you have science, even though none of the things that you're predicting have come true. None. Not one. And speaking of making a politics, right? So now we get... And I don't think we've touched on this aspect of the cover-up, or especially not in detail anyway. But so when in the budget... Not only did our governor remove the Libertarian, Green Party, and Independence line from participating in New York politics in the budget for some reason. Side note, sorry. He also included these legal shielding of the large part the executives and much of the hospitals from the Greater New York Hospital Association from legal responsibility from COVID, right? So this was the backdrop of this whole thing. Not only did Cuomo send all these people into these nursing homes that shouldn't have been sent there, then he shielded those facilities from legal liability from anything that happened from COVID, right? Like this was pushed back on a little bit in the budget, but because it was in the budget, everybody needed to pass the budget, they just passed it. And this was actually reported in May, so it's not new. And David Serrata, who is who I would call a progressive journalist, I don't know if he would call himself that, but I think he was a Bernie guy. So I mean, I'll say that. He's coming at Cuomo from the left, and he's done it multiple times. So it's not like this is. I mean, you can call it political all you want, but he's in the same party as the governor. So I'm not sure that how much. I think there was something like 2.3 million, I think, given to Cuomo in 2018 governor race. So 2 years later, he's given all these people immunity from prosecution. So I don't think that should be understated. I think that there is a clear conflict of interest that has been established by the governor insulating these places from damage that he probably contributed to damage too. It's like the most shady part of the whole thing is that he just basically shielded the large part, the Greater New York Hospital Association, from liability. It looks bad. It does. Like this is not a good look. I remember having a discussion with somebody when this first started, and I brought up the idea of like, yeah, he gave liability protection to the nursing homes, and the guy's like, you can't. Nursing homes can get sued for anything. I guarantee you they're all going to get sued and they're all going to lose. I said, no, you don't understand. They can't be. If your loved one died of COVID, and speaking of things, if you wanted incentive on labeling all deaths as COVID deaths, if you can't possibly be sued, you're going to be a little more inclined to classify COVID. Yeah, let me read a couple lines from this David Serrata article. that I just shared with you guys. So these are just a couple facts. He's got a list of facts here, but this is fact 2. Cuomo helped industry group shield nursing home execs. Amid New York's exploding COVID death toll in April 2020, Cuomo's budget included a provision shielding hospital and nursing home executives from legal consequences if their corporate decisions killed people during the pandemic. Yeesh. Greater New York Hospital Association said it drafted the provision, which did not merely shield frontline